Faster than writing to a letter forum. More thoughtful than angry clickbait. Able to discuss the world's first superhero in comics, film, TV, and more. It's the Supermaniacs. And we are about to talk about a classic Superman story. One of the OG greats, essential reads that everyone says you need to read. Is that true, though? That's something we're going to talk about. But Alan Moore's Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. I'm Fatheree, this is Mike. Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, all things considered, but that's more because of how this book can kind of make you feel. Because boy howdy.
Yeah, you can kind of go through a gauntlet of emotions reading this thing. We were just talking about off mic how it's a very dark story.
Like, surprisingly so, because I read it years ago, and I remember thinking the same thing at the time, and I wasn't sure how to feel about it then. I'm not sure how to feel about it now.
Well, we'll get into that. So the comic we're talking about, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, for people who, if you've never heard of it or you're not sure what we are talking about, this is one of the inspirations cited by James Gunn for the new movie. There's a couple things in here where I was like, oh, I could see how he might have liked that idea or took that influence, but not a ton. But this was the story they came up with way back in 1986 when DC was rebooting the Superman continuity, and we were going to stop with the Silver Age continuity and start this new, what we called the Modern Era continuity with John Byrne. So this was written to be kind of like it's almost like the series finale to the Silver Age Superman.
Yeah, it was right after Crisis on Infinite Earths had just sort of wrapped up.
Right.
They were like, everything's now one Earth. There's no such thing as multiple Earths, and the reboot was coming. But the same way the New 52 happened, and the same way the stuff before that, it was just everything was running as if nothing was going to change, type of thing. There was even the stories of all of the Superman stuff that was going on at the time didn't at any moment be continued in New 52. It was just everything's fine. Don't worry about anything changing. So the difference is that the editor on this one was well, we know we're gonna end, so why don't we do something bombastically different than we would have done between Golden Age and what we have now, which is but what if we decided instead this was going to be the end of Superman? And they originally asked Jerry Siegel if he could do it, but he was apparently too busy or something.
Well, so
time.
I looked into that. They did ask him. They were actually at San Diego Comic-Con, and he was there signing back when that convention was more about actual comics.
Yeah,
and they asked him then, and he immediately agreed. But then everyone's lawyers were like, no, that's a bad idea. For legal issues, they thought that would really muddy the waters, and if they had more time, they might have been able to, kind of work out some type of contract that everyone would have been happy with. But they had to get this done before the John Byrne stuff started.
Yeah, which is a shame, because I'm curious what his version of that would have been, because every creator has their idea of what they think the ending of their characters would be. And we never really got that from the people who made Superman. We never really got it from, people who made Batman. We don't know what in their minds would have been the end of these characters. And every now and then we'll get lucky and somebody will do it, like they've done with the Ninja Turtles sort of thing, where he's well, I have an idea for something that's really dark, but it's a possible ending, which is The Last Ronin type of thing. And then, and then sometimes characters are given a version by somebody who's a really well-known version or writer or artist of them, like the Punisher, the end, the Incredible Hulk, the end, that sort of thing. And then sometimes they're terrible, like the Wolverine, the end, that sort of thing, or Spider-Man Reign kind of thing. It's like we just got so in this case, Alan Moore was a lucky choice, I feel. But at the
yeah,
same time,
you could have done a lot worse.
You could have done a lot worse. You could have had Superman at World's End, is what I'm saying. And if people don't know what I'm talking about, look up the Hitler twins. and Superbad, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
But you mentioned the editor, Julie Schwartz, or Julius Schwartz, but he was kind of a big comics icon in the 50s, 60s, and 70s for DC. He really kind of shepherded in that Silver Age era. He was involved when they, created Barry Allen in the 50s and kind of kickstarted the Silver Age. He was the editor on the Batman comics in the 60s, when they were kind of having a resurgence and a heyday. And then he took over editing the Superman books from Mort Weisinger in 1970 or 1971, and kind of oversaw Superman during that final stage of the Silver Age, or the Bronze Age, as it's often referred to. But so he was basically like, he was kicked out of the door to make way for the new. Do we still call that the modern continuity? Whatever it was, like from 1986 to 2011. Like, we need like a name for that.
For a while, it was just called New Earth continuity. Some people called it the New Earth continuity after a while because modern didn't make any sense. So the idea that an editor can cause things to become stagnant based on what their views are on. I'm looking right at you, all Spider-Man editors, because fuck all of you. But that's a good example, is what I mean, because it's like, if you don't have editors that are willing to let things change, then you're stuck with somebody whose sensibilities are stuck in the time period they were known for editing. So you find yourself, for all we know, Julius could have just been like, well, look, I love the fact that you want Superman to be different, but what if he always loved Lana Lang the entire time? It's like, no one wants that anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't need a love triangle anymore, guys. We can pull back from that. It's fine.
But I think there was kind of a concentrated effort to show off, like, well, look at all like these cool toys of the Silver Age that we love to play with, that John Byrne is not gonna use. There's not gonna be any crypto, or they're not gonna have like these colorful, more fantasy like characters that we've actually like kind of recircled back to now.
Yeah, like
in comics.
Brainiac was like nothing, a nothing type character for a while during Byrne's run. Well, like at one point, it's like a circus guy with psychic powers who's like, it's alluded to whether or not Brainiac's real or not, type of thing during his storyline.
Yeah, Panic in the Sky, right?
Well, Panic in the Sky happens way after the fact. Like, the first time we ever meet a character named Brainiac, he's like a circus performer who's like, he's the amazing Brainiac.
Oh,
whatever.
Yeah, the Milton Fine.
The Milton Fine. And then,
depiction.
Like, one day, he's like, oh, his mind might have been taken over by an alien. And then, but the way John Byrne's story writes, it's like, well, maybe he just had delusions. Who knows if Brainiac's real, type of thing. And so for a long time, Brainiac, during John Byrne's era, was a fucking circus guy who thought he was an alien, type of thing. And it wasn't until after he left that everybody's like, so Milton Fine is Brainiac, and Brainiac is real, and everything's fine. Like, and then Panic in the Sky eventually kind of happens because of it. But it's mostly because John Byrne was like holding back so many of the more like mythical, fun things that was going on. And once he left, everybody's like, yeah, I'm going to open the play box again, because fuck that guy. Type of thing. And it's kind of funny when you think about it that way, especially when you read, because I have all the Man of Steel trades that they made for John Byrne's run, and you read it, and there's some stuff in there that like he gets to do the fantastical stuff. Like, I think there's a Titano story, for instance, but everything is like grounded in a way instead of being the way it would have been normally, I guess is a good way of putting it. Because even when they're like, we're going to do a Supergirl story, it's like, yeah, but what if it was like a clone thing that wasn't a Kryptonian or something? And you're like,
yeah,
well,
you have the weird alien shapeshifter Supergirl.
Yeah, and so when you read this story, whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, you're like, yeah, it's Alan Moore and everybody going like, well, the storylines that we're being told are like, a lot of these people can't be used anymore. So what if it is a send-off of, like, Clark sees Supergirl one more time, and Krypto has a one last triumphant moment type of thing. But the way a lot of other writers would go about that would be like a more adventurous thing that once it was done, somebody would be like, and then the adventure continues type thing. Because there were stories like that where they're like, well, what happened to this character? It's like, well, this thing happened, but and it's not the end. The adventure continues. Like the way Justice League Unlimited ends is a great example of that. Where like they finish defeating Darkseid. It's definitely the ending of everything essentially. But the way it ends is that it's not like the Justice League randomly disbands and Superman quits and Batman quits or the Wonder Woman quits or anything. They're just like, all the villains are like, well, we're going to go now because we're still evil. So, but you'll never catch us. And then they're like, we'll give them a head start. And I think Bruce says the never ending battle, I think he says is the last line. And they run off into at the screen. And it's like, and yeah, your idea is like the adventure continues. Alan Moore was like, fuck the adventure. The adventure continuing.
He likes having endings. He likes having that finality. I've heard Alan Moore talk about he's like the cranky old space wizard guy who hates everything. But when he was younger and used to like give compliments to other creatives, he said like he was a big fan of Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns because like it gave like an ending to Batman. And I can understand that desire as a comic book writer who's always writing these characters as I think it was Dan DiDio who coined this phrase, but they're always stuck in a second act. They never get like that third act conclusion. They all have origins. They all have like this cool first act story, and then after that they're just like permanently stuck in second act and never get to actually get that ending.
Yeah, third acts for a lot of characters always get reversed usually. Like Barry Allen got his third act and it was a hell of a third act and it stayed like that for a very long time until 2010 or something like that is when Barry finally came back. That's a huge amount of time frame in between to keep a character like that gone. And it's like if Superman had died and Supergirl was now the main character for like 30 years or something like that. And it's weird that Flash is the only one who got away with it, because even in the Green Lantern stuff, when Hal died, he didn't die for like a good while after Barry died, type of thing. Same with when Ollie died. When Ollie died, he didn't die till like the 80s, and then he didn't come back till like the 2000s, and that's still not nearly as long. Actually, no, it would have been like the late 80s. And that's still not as long as Barry died. Barry, I think, stayed dead the longest of anyone who was like the main character. Because everyone else who had that sort of like, they died and they came back, they were all like sidekicks, like Bucky, Jason Todd, that sort of thing. But imagine if this was like the final actual story of Superman and like everything was about like the Legion of Superheroes or something. Like that was the remaining thing. Like it's crazy to think about. Or even like, what if the death of Superman happened and he didn't come back? Like what if we did follow the Metropolis kid for like another 20 years and then Superman randomly showed up? It's an interesting thing to think about that. But Alan Moore's ending is so powerful that it has affected a lot of other versions of Superman's end in a lot of other stories.
Yeah, and this story definitely cast a large shadow. And Alan Moore, we should say, this was he's a very famous, iconic writer now, but this was at the same time that Watchmen was being published. It was very early in his career, and he was even then he was known as a bit of a rock star in the industry, but he was a young, up and coming famous writer, and it's kind of him getting the chance to write the send off to his childhood hero. He grew up reading Silver Age Superman.
He was a great choice because of the fact that he was the kid who read. He's like a kid who read Superman and imagined his own ending, and so he got to have some fun with the idea. Whereas if you ask Jerry Siegel, probably it would have still been a very somber thing, but it might have been a little too adventure continues type thing, if that makes sense. And I don't mean that as a bad thing for either side. It's just that, like, depending on what you want from the finale of a story, it really depends on how you're going to feel about this. But let's actually talk about the story itself before we go a little further out.
Yeah,
really.
sure. I just want to also mention on the creative team that there's art by Curt Swan, who at the
Yeah.
time was known as like the Superman guy for the last couple of decades.
And in
And
fact, every artist and every writer for a while is like Curt Swan is the reason Superman is Superman, because for before that it's all golden age type stuff. But when Curt Swan did it, that's the version. That's to everyone. That's the classic Superman look is because of Curt Swan.
And they've released this. The first half was in Superman number 423. The second half was in Action Comics 583. On Superman, the inks are done by George Perez, who at the time also up and coming rock star in the industry. He had just finished the new Teen Titans and Crisis on Infinite Earths, and was about to do his big Wonder Woman run. And he was he said he was honored and privileged to get the opportunity to ink a Curt Swan Superman story. And then the other famous Superman artist around at the time, Kurt Schaffenberger, inked the other issue in Action Comics number 583. And I love that, like, if we talk about like Superman beginning with Action Comics, it would have been so cool if Jerry Siegel did write like that last issue that like, I like that the second half was Action Comics. It kind of like bookended the run.
It was the perfect spot to make that the ending, because Superman is, it's an old title, but Action Comics is the title. So if you would have ended it in a Superman issue, I don't think it would have felt right.
But yeah, let's get into the story, like you said. We can start with the open. The opening actually takes place in the futuristic year of like 1996, right? It's supposed to be 10 years in the future. So this came out in 86.
It's supposed to be like way later on past what's happened to Superman, and even like her coffee machine is like. That's the thing I forgot about this. I forgot it's supposed to take place in like the far-flung future of the time frame it takes place in, because my recollection of it was the guy wearing like a normal suit, but when you look at what he's wearing, it's got these like shoulder pad.
Yeah, he's like
out.
Jetson's future attire.
Yeah, you really look at it and you're like, oh, that is not a normal like 1990s, 1980s outfit.
Oh, there's actually a date. There's actually a date in there, August 16th, 1997.
Yeah, there it is, 1997. And yeah, you look at his outfit. It looks almost like something Liberace would wear, and I don't mean that as a bad thing necessarily. It's just such an interesting outfit because it's got like a sort of shoulder paddy George Jetson thing, but he also has like an ascot, but has like got this really popped collar, and then like where Lois is wearing something that I would actually see somebody wearing nowadays, but then you look at the machine that she has is clearly like a much fancier thing, and I forgot about the way the crib looks. Like there's so much about it that I forgot is supposed to be the future.
Yeah, so that was Curt Swan's depiction, knowing Alan Moore's famously detailed scripts. They say like when he writes a comic book script, he'll have like 3 pages describing one panel sometimes. So who knows who came up with that idea? But yeah. The story opens set in the future with a older Lois Lane being interviewed by a new reporter at the Daily Planet because they're doing a big piece on it's been 10 years since the end of Superman. So
Superman had one final hurrah, and no one knows what happened. Like I like the opening. I guess you could call it an opening crawl, which is that like this is an imaginary story of what could have happened or what might have happened. Like, we don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
Superman's been gone for a long time, but sometimes people look up in the sky and wondering, is that speck him? But no, it's just the bird. It's just the plane. And which I thought was fun. The idea they're like, it's a bird. It's a plane. No, that is what it is for once. Like, if Superman's not around, and I thought that was really like a fun way of, the audience being like, people have lived without Superman for a lot longer than normal.
Yeah, it's very melancholy that there's like that opening paragraph on the first page talking about the context of the story and it is being an imaginary story, which was a thing that the previous Superman editor before Julie Schwartz, Mort Weisinger, really loved to do in like the 50s and 60s. He'd be like, hey, let's do a quote unquote imaginary story where we can just do whatever we want and it's not in continuity. Kind of similar to like Marvel What If, but I would say like, more confusing to explain to your reader. But yeah, it's kind of a throwback to that. But what Alan Moore adds to it is in that disclaimer in the opening where he says this is an imaginary story, then he adds the question, aren't they all? Which, this is all this shit is imaginary.
Which I thought was really fun, because it's like, it's a good way of being like, we're having fun with this, don't take this too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Although everybody did, don't get me wrong. But like, it's just them being like, we're having a fun last hurrah type of thing. Like that's the thing that's interesting about the story is Alan Moore never meant for it to be like such a huge impact of Superman. He just meant it to be like, this is just a fun send off and what I think would happen at the end of Superman's career.
Yeah, and it's also a bit of like, this is all for fun. Please don't hate me for killing these people.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
There's a lot of death in this story.
Because the thing is, he wrote it the way a lot of What If Superman stories were. Because the thing a lot of people don't realize is that during the Silver Age and Bronze Age, there's a lot of random What If Superman storylines throughout them. One of them actually is, what if Superman was killed by like Lex Luthor, by like Lex pretending to be like a good guy, and then at the end he fucking poisons like Superman to death, and they're like, and that's how the story ends. Superman doesn't just come back at the end. They're like, yeah, Superman's back. It's like, oh, Lex Luthor fucking won, and he's like, I got it, and then he just fucking he's like, I give up because I fucking did it, type of thing. So this wasn't like unheard of type of thing within this continuity. It's just that for a lot of people, this was the only thing they ever read about this like time frame.
And you mentioned the like in Lois's house in this future year in 1997, she's got like this high-tech coffee machine. She's got like this high-tech crypt that there's a baby in. So she's married. She's going by Mrs. Elliot, and like outside there's like this big like statue of Superman memorializing him. So like they kind of tell us immediately, like, yeah, Superman has not been seen for a long time. People still remember him. People still like him. And this guy, Tim Crane, sitting down to interview Lois Lane, he pulls out the recorder to record this interview. So I was like, okay, I guess that's kind of the same structure of a scene that James Gunn used in the new movie, having like this interview with Lois Lane being recorded. Although here she's the subject of the interview, not the person conducting it.
That's the funny thing. When I was reading it, I was trying to figure out exactly what James Gunn got from it. And the more I read it, the more I'm like, I'm not 100% certain outside of maybe the Fortress being a thing.
I think
I don't really know.
Fortress stuff. I think having big pivotal scenes at the Fortress. But
that's probably part of it. Crypto fighting in the Fortress, maybe. It's like, it's really hard to pinpoint what he probably got out of this. And, because there's a lot in here that's just like, is very specific to if you know these characters at this point.
Yeah. This is not a great comic to read if you're new to Superman comics, because it's, it's pulling in a lot of what would have been common up until 1985 in Superman comics.
Yeah, there's a great line that she says when they're like, well, what was going on during that time frame? It's like, well, Parasite and Terraman killed each other over an ego thing, and then like for a while people don't know who the fuck Terraman was. I barely knew who Terraman was, and I didn't know who he was at the time I first read this. I didn't know who Terraman was for like another 6 years after I read this comic. In fact, he just showed up again for the first time in like modern comics like a year or two ago because of Joshua Williamson's Superman story.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, if you'd never read a Silver Age comic and you saw the words Terraman, you wouldn't know what the fuck they're talking about. You barely even know who the Kryptonite Man is, type of thing. Like, this story's full of stuff like that, like ideas that are like, as well as like mentions of things that happened in the past about later on in the story that involves a plan involving Jimmy and Lana. like stuff that you're like, you remember when this thing happened so long ago, and you're like, if you're reading, you're like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
But yeah, Alan Moore was clearly a fanboy for all this stuff because he pulls it all back in. I'm mentioning a lot of these characters having the first time that the story like kind of like made my heart sink and made me remember like, oh yeah, the stuff does get really dark is when Lois starts telling the story of the final days of Superman to this interviewer, this new Daily Planet reporter, Tim Crane. And she's talking about, yeah, Superman returned from a mission in space, and he returns to, Metropolis in ruins, buildings on fire, people running around screaming. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. The story opens with Bizarro's murder-suicide sequence.
Yeah, it starts with that, and then where is it? I'm trying to remember if it's in here. Oh yeah, here it is. It's in the opening crawl. This is your first hint that the things are going to go bad. Besides that, where it says how finally all the things he had were taken from him for save for one, and you're like, that's very ominous. Opening crawl, and then yeah, it starts with Bizarro just losing his goddamn mind, like in a way that's just like, it's also like the hint that something is wrong outside of that, because Bizarro. Yeah, everything's fucked up. Like Bizarro says something that actually made me be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would he say it that way? And then when you think about, the reveal, what happens, it explains a lot more. But Bizarro does something very interesting, is that he does something that a lot of people joke about in like stuff, where they're like, what if Bizarro always did everything the opposite of Superman? And Bizarro just goes, what if I was as opposite as I like physically possibly could make happen? And when he starts saying it, like, you're with Superman, you're like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? This the thing where he's like, yeah, I realized if I'm the imperfect version of you, I should come to Earth as an adult man where his planet was destroyed on purpose instead of like due to hubris. And Superman's like, are you saying Bizarro is fucking like gone? And that's what and Bizarro's just like, his monologue, he's having like a monologue basically. Like, it's a villainous monologue that also feels like a cry for help at the same time. Like, it's like heartbreaking hearing how Bizarro talks about it, because he's doing it in such quick succession that Superman's like legitimately worried about him, only for him to. This is the line where I feel like something like that, you should realize something's absolutely wrong with Bizarro besides the obvious, where he says, that am only beginning. Next, me realize that Superman never kill, so me kill lots of people. When he said "so me kill lots of people," he doesn't say it in Bizarro speak correctly. He should have said, because Superman always kill people. Me not kill a lot of people is what he should have said. But instead, he went out of his way to explain, since you don't kill people, I killed a lot of people. And then he goes back to normal Bizarro speak directly after that. And I don't know if they did that on purpose. It feels what it does to me. It feels like it was purposely done to like show how there is something wrong with.
Yeah, he's under the influence of something else. And occasionally, like, mysterious things like that happen. Like with the force field thing later. But yeah, that there might be a greater evil force out there manipulating things. But yeah, it's weird how Bizarro is behaving out of character yet in character. He as Superman points out, like, he's normally not this dangerous. He's normally, just kind of a almost harmless buffoon. But he's like really leaning into I have to be the imperfect duplicate of Superman. So yeah, I'll destroy my planet on purpose and come to Earth as an adult. I'll kill all these people, and then his final act, because Superman is alive, I must be dead. So he has the blue kryptonite, which is fatal to Bizarro. However, like, this story, like, it really does expect the reader, like, you have to know what blue kryptonite is. You have to know, like, Bizarro's normal behavior to understand how he's out of character here.
Yeah, it's a story that, like, if this is the first time you've ever read Superman, this is why I've always been confused when some people are like, you should read Whatever Happened to Man of Tomorrow as one of your first books. I'm like, no, you should not. If you decide to read Whatever Happened to Man of Tomorrow, and all you did was read modern comics, I'd be like, well, read it after you've read a lot of them, and then maybe you'll have some appreciation for it, type of thing. But if you read it without ever reading a Silver Age story, and I mean any Silver Age story, you're going to be confused by, one, the tone of how Superman and his friends are treated, two, the Superman Lana Lois Lane triangle, and then three, that Clark is a TV reporter and not a newspaper reporter.
Yes. Which in the next scene you have Clark Kent in the offices of WGBS, right? Is the Galaxy Broadcasting Company?
If I remember correctly, yeah.
This is actually one of my favorite scenes in this story, and I think about it a lot. But the exposure of Clark Kent as Superman, his secret identity is destroyed because of these toy Superman, these little like Superman action figures that are sent to their office that go crazy and start attacking and blowing things up and also killing people, but also they fry the clothes off of Clark Kent, revealing his Superman suit underneath.
It's such a wonderful shot, like when they look up and there's his outfit completely destroyed, and he's holding the Superman figures. Like, gosh, he's like, now I can stop them. Now that everybody, now that it's too late, I guess I could stop them now, type of thing. And what's really funny about it is that everybody immediately just goes, "Oh, I guess you're Clark Kent," right away, which I think is kind of fun because Grant Morrison, when they did something similar, everybody immediately was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, this is, but so I found it kind of funny that Alan Moore trusts his supporting cast more than Grant Morrison did.
Yeah,
because in All-Star Superman, I'm sure we'll get to that, but there's a point where something similar kind of happens, and Steve Lombard goes, "I knew you were Superman in disguise, or I knew you were in disguise as Clark Kent Superman instead of the other way around." Like, nobody believes, like, people so believe that Clark Kent is not Superman that the second Superman's revealed as Clark Kent in that story, everyone's like, nah, that's dumb. Even though it's right in front of them.
Yeah, they don't waste a lot of time with that. They just, like, everyone sees it and they're just, like, okay with it. I guess, like, the other...
in this one, based on, like, how all the adventures Lana has gone with Superman type of thing. Yeah, of course she would believe that at this point.
And at this point, Lana worked there at WGBS with them. Lana has a job with Clark Kent and Lois Lane.
They needed ways of making sure that Lana was around Clark's the whole time, Clark's life. So they eventually were just like, well, she works for that place, and Lois is still, Lois was still the newspaper reporter, but like, Clark Kent's life needs to be updated for the current times where where they're now like news broadcast type things. And so somebody did that for Clark, which made for some very interesting ideas of like, well, what if Clark has to, because unlike the way a newspaper reporter is where they can just leave whenever they want to, Clark has to be there for like the 6 o'clock news type of thing. Like, you can't just like be like, oh no, I got to go report on this thing. It's like, that's great. You can report it at your desk while the camera's right on you, which made for some interesting drama. I'm not gonna lie. I think the reason why Byrne set it back to where one, he's a newspaper reporter and not a TV reporter, is because that sounds really hard to write for.
Yeah, and I think people just like they wanted the classic Clark Kent mild-mannered reporter at the Planet. But these little toy action figures that are attacking, they also start talking shit, and they're like, oh, Superman was Clark Kent all along, and we've now like exposed his secret, and Superman recognizes the voices as Toyman and Prankster. And then,
hell of a couple characters to use for this reveal, by the way.
Yeah, like it's like Alan Moore's wanted to start off with some of the last less dangerous Superman foes, and then kind of work his way up to the big one. And he kind of like hints, it's like, okay, it's gonna lead up to a showdown with his ultimate foe, and kind of leaves it open as to who that is for I guess for the reader to kind of suspect.
Yeah, you there's a lot of red herrings in this, and and the fact that like his least dangerous foes like Bizarro Bizarro was dangerous, but he was never like he was comically dangerous type of thing. Like you never really felt like he would be like capable of like a mass murder rampage type of thing. And then you don't expect Toyman, and especially Prankster, you don't expect the reveal that what's in the box for to be something the Prankster did.
Yeah, and that's why like the story might be like a little weird if you're not familiar with these Silver Age characters. Like it's normally not this dark and disturbing, unless it was like written as like an imaginary story, which is not going to be in continuity, which I guess this was. But there they'd kind of be like, look, we can just like kill whoever we want. But like here, it's like, look, Pete Ross is dead, murdered by Toyman and the Prankster.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. Another thing about us talking about how Pete Ross is not important Superman story. He fucking dies without saying a word. Pete Ross, Superman's other best friend from Smallville, is so inconsequential. He just he dies and he's like, oh no, Pete's died, and then no one talks about it again after that.
So at this point, it must have been public knowledge that Superman was friends with Pete Ross, not just Clark Kent, but Superman. And the Toyman and the Prankster, they said they were going to go after all of Superman's friends and allies, starting with the people most furthest away, and then work their way closest to him. And when they captured Pete Ross and tortured him and questioned him about Superman, they found out he was Clark Kent, so that's how they knew to attack Clark Kent at work. However, they also kind of established by saying that, yeah, we were going to start with the least important people in your life and work your way up. So they're saying Pete Ross, the least important Superman supporting character, at least according to Toyman and Prankster.
And it makes sense when he says the furthest away, because Lana lives in Metropolis, based on this.
Sure, yeah.
Or not based on this, but like knowing at this point she lives in Metropolis. Like she's not traveling from Smallville to Metropolis to do the news every day. So yeah, they're like the most furthest away. So one, he wouldn't even notice that he's missing until somebody tells him. And two, like you said, Pete Ross is like nobody in the Superman cast, according to a lot of things we've read, but to the villains themselves. They're like, yeah, we just assumed you kind of knew Pete Ross, type of thing. We didn't realize that he absolutely knew who you were. But it makes you wonder though, like, do you think that like the force that controlled what they did got them there? Like you never, like you find yourself questioning a lot of the stuff once the reveal happens, more often than not. But I do like the fact that like after he defeats them, they look just as confused as Clark is about what's going on.
But the way he defeats them, I think about this scene so much ever since I first read this, and I always thought it would be cool if they did this in like a Superman show or movie or something. But their remote control action figures are talking shit to Superman, who's traumatized seeing the dead body of Pete Ross delivered to him, and Superman has this cool ass line: "Prankster, Toyman, let me ask you one question. Do you know what radio waves look like?" And then he crashes into their secret base or whatever, and he says, "Because I do." He just followed the radio waves to see where their transmission was coming from.
It's fun because it's not something that gets used a lot in modern stuff. I remember it showing up, I want to say, in either Birthright or American Alien, where it's one of the reasons he flies to Lex because he sees the waves of something that's being controlled, and it all leads to Lex Luthor. So he flies through the window, and he's just like, "I've got you." And he's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I followed the radio waves here off of this thing, and it points to you." And he's like, "Great. How can you, like, admit that as evidence that I saw the radio waves?" Like, it's a great moment of, like, it's awesome that you can do that, but how are you going to prove that shit?
Yeah, it's kind of a creative use of Superman's superpowers. They make like a big deal about him being able to see all these, weird microscopic things and different spectrums and stuff. Supervision, more
It's
than
a
just
it's
X-rays.
it's a great thing about it's something that you talked about as well when he's like he sees an aura around people, and it's because of the different types of things he can see. Like
Hmm.
for instance, like have you ever heard the theory about the way dogs or the way some animals view a person is that they have like stripes? Have you ever heard that?
No, I don't know about that.
So there's a theory among scientists based on like the way dogs see or not just dogs, but like some animals see specific vision. Is that that there's this invisible set of lines on people that like vary depending on what it is. So for all we know, some animals see us like the way we see zebras, basically. And I think that's really interesting. And like for all we know, Superman might be able to see that.
Weird. Um, but yeah, so like, right off the bat in this story, we get like Bizarro murder suicide, then like, oh, by the way, Pete Ross is dead, and everyone knows Clark Kent is Superman, so he has to give up his secret identity.
I love after that he just stops wearing Clark outfits because he goes to Pete's funeral dressed as Clark or dressed as Superman.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't need to wear a suit.
He does the Spider-Man thing, the Spider-Man No More thing, but instead of throwing his superhero costume in the trash can, he throws his Clark Kent suit and tie into the trash can.
What I appreciate about them showing a funeral is it shows that not everything happened at once. Like it wasn't like a gauntlet where it's like, one day it happened, the next day it happened, the day after that. It's like there was time in between for
Right.
Superman to breathe, to try to figure out what was going on, but he wasn't sure.
And he's very he's kind of anxious about things because at the funeral he's talking about like, something weird is going on for Bizarro and Prankster and Toyman to become this deadly when they were all just nuances before, and now they're showing up as killers. What's going to happen when the villains who were killers reemerge? Something bad is stirring up my rogues gallery, and I don't like it, and I'm nervous for whatever's next.
Exactly. He's like, these are the two most like villainous people that would absolutely I know would kill without ever being controlled. Like, what happens if they're controlled? Like, what if their entire instincts are like ramped up to like 11, the way Bizarro's and Toyman's and theirs was. And I love Lois being like, he didn't have to say who they were. Like, our first thoughts were exactly what you think they are, Lex Luthor and Brainiac. And then comes probably one of the most insane things about the story, which is what happens immediately after she has that thought process, which is this little sequence here. People can't see this, but it's what happens to Lex, which, in my opinion, was kind of anticlimactic when it came to Lex.
I get that instinct, and I kind of had the same. I was kind of disappointed with Lex the first time I ever read the story because I was like, oh man, I thought like the final showdown between Superman and his arch enemy would be like Superman versus Lex Luthor. But what I think is kind of fun about this is that's like the ultimate insult to Lex is like, oh, you actually aren't going to matter that much in the final story of Superman. You die, you get like taken over by Brainiac, and then eventually die kind of pathetically, and it's
unceremoniously, really.
But I think that's like such kind of a
not even to like his arch enemy.
I think that's kind of like just such like a fun like insult to give to Lex though, and it makes me think about how in James Gunn's movie it also kind of make sure that like by the end of the movie you don't have respect for Lex Luthor. He like kind of like the crypto scene of him like throwing him around or something like that. It's like I don't know. I just kind of like seeing like the character put in his place like that.
Yeah, but it's the ultimate insult to Lex. It reminds me of a line that happens in Joshua Williamson's, or not Joshua Williams, in Philip Kennedy Johnson's run right after the Warworld saga, where Manchester Black is talking to Lex, and he's like, "You want to know what Superman thinks about you when you're not, like you're not there," type of thing. The way like Lex would think about Superman when Superman's not there, and he's like, "Nothing, not a goddamn thing." if you're not there, he doesn't even consider you. He doesn't even think for a second about you. He's in the moment type of thing. He can live his life without ever thinking about you, but you can't. And this happening to Lex is so fucked. Because, and it's not even like Lex. The funniest part is it's not even like Lex does it to find Brainiac to be like, I'm going to use you to destroy Superman. He finds Brainiac, and the only thing he says about Brainiac as he finds him, he's like, I can't wait to study this guy type of thing. Like, I'm very excited to use my super intelligence to really like understand a little more about the technology of him, and then maybe I can like use it for something. But Brainiac pulling the reverse Uno card on Lex is like kind of incredible.
But having Lex like out in the snow with like the parka on with the Arctic gear, also something we got in the new movie.
Yeah, and it's funny because when you look at the way Lex is drawn after when he's like having his like the close-ups on his face, is it me or does he look kind of Gene Hackman-y?
Oh yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah,
because like when he first shows up, it's very classic Curt Swan Lex Luthor looking, normal Lex Luthor. But once it starts doing the close-ups of like Lex's agonized face, it's got a lot of Gene Hackman to it because of the fact that like he probably never like did like very more detailed looks to him, and so he probably used Gene Hackman like angry Gene Hackman faces for reference, especially this last one when he's like doing the scream. Like that is the way the eyebrows and everything, like all of a sudden Lex's eyebrows and everything get like way thicker than it was drawn before that point. And it's really just like interesting that way. And then Brainiac just from then on takes over Lex's body. And I think that's, like you said, it's the ultimate insult to Lex Luthor. And it's fascinating because of it. Because you're expecting it to be a Brainiac Lex Luthor team up, but and the way Brainiac, because Lex brings those up, he's like, you remember those classic Lex Luthor Brainiac team ups, and then Brainiac like makes fun of him. He's like, yes, another classic Brainiac Lex Luthor team up is what this is happening. It's like, man, like Brainiac is just like rubbing it in.
Lex even uses the term buddies. He said we used to be buddies. I was like, oh yeah, like post John Byrne post John Byrne Lex would never like say he was buddies with anyone. So
no, yeah, this was very like Legion of Doom type like Lex Luthor's thought process. He's like, some of his villains were kind of buddies, even though like they didn't betray each other as often then as they would now, type of thing. Although they still did, just not like super often. Type of thing, because team-ups were more common back then between villains. But yeah, I feel like this having Lex being betrayed like this probably legitimately was not something he expected happening.
But yeah, Lex finds the robot head. It gets I guess like Brainiac like installs itself onto Lex's head and takes control of his body. So, the big villain that they keep teasing that Superman's going to have the final showdown with, you're like, okay, right off the bat, I guess it's not going to be Lex. I guess it's going to be Brainiac. And that's what it kind of leaves you suspecting.
Yeah, and then another, like, that's like one of the biggest, like, reveals of what could be happening. And then the next thing that happens, I thought was, very interesting. I had forgot about this next part where Lois tells, like it was a couple days after Pete's funeral, like it'd been 2 or 3 days since then. And then the Daily Planet's attacked by Metallo, but the fact that Metallo, it's not just one Metallo, but it's a bunch of people turned into Metallos. And there's this line where he says, "We're coming to kill you the way Kent killed my brother," and you're like, I can't have any recollections of Clark ever. Like, is this a different Metallo, or like what was going on here? That's one of those things that I never read enough Silver Age, Bronze Age to know what he's talking about there. If it's something that Alan Moore decided happen between some issues type of thing. Because it's not like Parasite and Terror Man probably killed themselves during an issue. Like, a lot of it feels like Alan Moore had because it's something that Alan Moore tends to do, where he's like had a roadmap to get from point A to point B, and there's probably a bunch of stuff that happened in between that we may never find out happened, type of thing. Because I just find that fascinating that that's part of what it is. And yeah, the idea, and it's not even the fact that the Metallos just climb up; they like fucking board them the way like you board a ship, like the way pirates do, because they have like grappling hooks that like they have grappling hooks that fly out of their chest. It's such a Silver Age like silly thing to happen, but it's also like a deadly serious thing that's going on.
And it's so funny to me, like looking back at the depiction of Metallo here, where it's just kind of, it just kind of looks like a metal mask on someone's head. Like, it's, I know, like, during like the Jeff Johns the Jeff Johns Action Comics run, they kind of did like a throwback to like the style of Metallo. But like, I don't even know, was like the kryptonite thing with Metallo, was that established before Byrne did it?
No, it was always a thing involving Metallo. He
Metallo
just
always
really dumb was the idea.
But was he always powered by kryptonite?
As far as I know, yeah, he was always
okay.
he was always a kryptonite powered villain. The only difference a lot of the times was like, did he look like a person or did he look the way he did now? Which is just like a type of thing here. At least the version of Metallo that we know nowadays.
But this is
I think there was another Metallo that had like a strength serum or something like that.
Oh yeah, I think there was like a Golden Age Metallo that wasn't John Corbin. He had a different name back then.
Yeah, once John Corbin hit the scene, I think the idea was that he was always
kryptonite powered.
He was always kryptonite powered eventually, because it was a power source that he used. I'm gonna look it up real quick just in case. Yeah, here it is. Corbin was a criminal / journalist. When he died of an accident originally, where he was fleeing the scene of a murder, or apparently a professor found his body, put it into a robot brain, and it was powered by kryptonite. Yeah, so John Corbin was always a kryptonite powered Metallo type of thing. But the only difference was whether or not he looked like a person, or if he had like the outfit he's wearing during the scene. Because I think once it's revealed that he was that way, he always like has this sort of outfit.
Oh, okay. So I guess I'm looking up the Metallo Wikipedia page now, and there was a Roger Corbin after John Corbin died in 1977. So then...
Oh, okay.
So the John, in the Silver Age continuity, the John Corbin Metallo died, and then his brother Roger Corbin took over the mantle. But it's crazy to me. This is just like a few months before like the famous like John Byrne depiction of, very Terminator-esque of like the scary skeleton robot under like the fake flesh skin with the kryptonite heart. It just always seems like such like a deadly menace to Superman. But here we have like this army of dudes who they're just like strong guys in armor basically.
Yeah, it's funny because I found out how he died, and it's the funniest possible way he could have died. He went to a museum and he stole what he thought was a piece of kryptonite to power him, and it turns out it was just a fake piece of rock, basically.
Oh.
he was like, I'm now powered by this piece of kryptonite. He was about to kill Lois, and then it's just like, oh, it does nothing, and he just died.
That's very embarrassing. That'd be like going to the gas station and you ruin your car because you put diesel in it instead of regular gas, but...
Yeah, he's like, this will supercharge me. He's like, no, that was a rock painted green, my friend. That's really fun. That's actually that's way funnier than I anticipated it being. But no, I didn't realize that John had died during the Silver Age. Again, I never read enough Silver Age to like, because I know a lot of people who've read that sort of time frame. A lot of them are just people that are older than us in general. And there's some people on Twitter who made it their mission to read all of Superman. And I'm very proud of those people, because that is a hell of an undertaking.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool.
80 years worth of Superman to go through, and it's doable. It's not like, because unlike novels, it wasn't like every time a new Superman came out, it was a large fucking novel. It's like, no, it was a series of issues that once you read them all one after another, it'll take you like maybe a week or so for some of them. And then the Silver Age, I think, would be like the largest. The Silver Age to Bronze Age would be the largest amount of them to read. And I'm very proud of the people who can do that, because those are the people that I would love to just sit there and have a conversation with. But I'm always very like, something I would love to do one of these days, but it's like I don't know if I would ever. I would have to take a long time to really get into that.
If I'm lucky enough to have like a long retirement in my old age, then maybe I'll do some stuff like that. But yeah, I've never read a Metallo story that takes place before. I guess like the John Byrne reintroduction of Metallo. I've never read like a Silver Age Metallo story. But I like it's a very Silver Agey way that Superman defeats these guys. He turns the Daily Planet thing, that iconic thing on top of the building. He basically turns that into a giant magnet.
Yeah, it's such like anything else would have been like, oh, he super speed flew through them all and like grabbed each one after another. Like that would be like the modern way of defeating them. Or this is like, well, if I rub this piece of metal in just the correct way, Lois, it makes a magnet that's so powerful, but not too powerful. Because if it's too powerful, then every car in the area would be taken, and every like pencil or like it's like, but it's just enough that it gets only the metallos. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
But it's very very Silver Age comics logic.
Yeah, and my favorite thing is that Lois just says, I was worried that I remember hoping he hadn't made it strong enough to lift the cars from the street below, but I needn't have worried. He got everything right, just right, as always. And it's like, that is such a Silver Age thing, that not only that Superman did, but the way Lois reacted to it. Type of thing. Because Lois nowadays, and I don't mean this as like Lois doesn't trust Clark, she would still have been worried. Type of thing, and Clark might have fucked up. Like that's the thing, is like if he did something like this nowadays, he actually might have fucked it up. Type of thing, or any of the rest of the Super family. Like if you saw John Kent do this, like I would be like, okay, that guy's gonna fuck that up. Type of thing. Like he doesn't have the, but you. I think one of the reasons he did it as well was to show that Superman's experience is so much higher than it probably would have been, that he's able to just. Like, something like this would have been like a huge event type thing, but instead he's so good at this that that's all it takes for him to defeat an army of Metallos.
But the point of this, I guess, is to show that the Daily Planet building got attacked, that now, like, the truth is out there, that Clark Kent was Superman all along, so all of his friends and allies, no one is safe anymore. Kryptonite Man is also attacking Metropolis, but he's abducted by Brainiac to be part of that team up. And Superman is taking all of Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, Perry White. Perry White's wife, I guess, is currently fighting with Perry. But like he takes all of them to the fortress because these villains keep attacking downtown Metropolis now that his secret is out.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's kind of heartbreaking that Clark's first thoughts are, I need to take everyone to the fortress because I can't protect you guys the way things are going. And he gets them there, and then Crypto shows up. And then Crypto showing up, the lines they mention here where he's just like, it's like he sensed what the rest of us had, which is like...
I love that.
Awesome it is. They're like, basically, as awesome as it is that Crypto came back, we all were like, his sudden arrival really was like, this is really ominous, because why else would he show up at this exact moment, type of thing.
Yeah, I guess like at the time, like Crypto had been absent from the comics. They said like, oh, he had just been like out exploring space, but now he's showed up because he knew something was wrong. But just more of that like nice ominous suspense building. But I love that Alan Moore thought about like, oh yeah, I need to include Crypto in this big Superman finale, and then kill him.
Yeah, and then do horrendous things to everybody. Yeah, and it's like when everybody's there at the fortress, seeing Alice and Perry like go to separate rooms. I love that he says like he prepared us a meal. It was time of bed. He showed us all the guest rooms, and he looked sad as Perry and Alice went to separate rooms. That like Clark is like, man, like you guys are at like the end of your lives and you're just still upset with each other. He's like, this is bullshit. And I like that Lana and Lois, like, they went to each other because who else knows the pain of like loving somebody who wasn't sure who they were until like the very end there. Because a lot of people forget that during this time frame, Superman was the love interest, not Clark type of thing during the Silver Age. It's one of the reasons why I don't fault the Superman movies of the Richard Donner time frame, because in all of those during the time frame in comics, Clark Kent wasn't really the guy we know now. He was the disguise. Like he wasn't like Clark Kent was never really real when it came to the Silver Age. The way Silver Age treated him, at least, type of thing. The way Golden Age Clark was, that dude and and Superman were exactly the same person. They were both snarky as hell, type of thing. Whereas you read Silver Age, he was a lot of like he was very dorky in a way that like was clearly like a facade type of thing. And so it makes sense that these two were like, I love Superman specifically, type of thing. And then comes, I think, probably one of the more heartbreaking scenes in the entire thing, which is the ending of the first issue.
Yeah, well, he has to see his dead cousin who like just died in Crisis on Infinite Earth. Supergirl had just died, and then he sees like a younger version of her who's been in the future in the 30th century hanging out with the Legion of Superheroes. We get like the big Legion cameo, and Superman's like, "Oh, it's my dead cousin. This is awkward and heartbreaking."
And she's still wearing her old like school outfit. Like it's very similar to what she wears nowadays, which is like, a long sleeve shirt with the Superman symbol directly on the chest. The skirt is blue instead of red. And her hair is kind of, it's almost permed up, if that makes sense. Like I don't know how else to really say it. It's like old timey blonde hair, I guess, like a Marilyn Monroe type cut on one of them. And what's great is seeing that and seeing the statue of what she looked like when she died, which is this I forgot that it looked like this, where the Superman symbol was just on one of her boobs. Like it wasn't.
Yeah, just like a little patch.
It's like a patch. She's wearing short shorts, no like a long sleeve shirt and the cape, and her hair is much longer. And he's like there because he feels bad about it. He's he's walking by it. He's like, I just feel like everything is falling into place. And I love that when she shows up and she's like, "Hey, it's great to see you. They said they were coming to see you, and I really wanted to go see you." He's like, "Oh, you grew up." Like when she says, "Can you tell me whether I grew up to be pretty?" And the way he hesitates, because he says "you" first and then says, "You grew up beautiful, Kara." And I love when he says, "Let's go this way where the lights are better," because he had just walked by the memorial for her having died, and he's like, I can't have you seeing that. Like, you can't know that you fucking died on me.
Yeah. They talk about, like, like the time travel rules and not revealing the future or anything. But apparently, like, there's some wiggle room. Brainiac gives Superman this weird gift. He's like, "Here, we came back in time to give you this little statue of yourself holding the Phantom Zone projector."
Yeah, and it's really funny that Clark just doesn't think about it. But it makes sense why Clark doesn't think about it at that moment. Because he's too busy just being, like, shocked that his dead cousin standing right in front of him. And talking about how much he's excited for the future, essentially. She's like, "I can't wait till nothing bad happens to me." And he's like, "Yes, nothing bad happens to you." And then there's the other thing that she mentions, which is that a lot of people don't know about this, which is that there was a super cat at the time. There is a super cat again nowadays, but at the time, Streaky the super cat was powered by a specific type of kryptonite that gave them superpowers. But I looked it up to be sure because I was curious as to what had happened to Streaky. Apparently, before this had happened, the last time they ever showed up, all of kryptonite on Earth was transformed into iron. And then, so Streaky the super cat was no more. There were just a cat from then on. So it's almost like sad that even though she dies as well, like the things that she remembers and the things that she like held on to, like none of that stuff exists anymore.
Yeah, she's talking about things that like, well, that ain't even in continuity anymore. You're talking like it's still like the 50s or 60s. This is 1986. Get with it.
And it's so sad because he's just like, and he's like pissed off at Brainiac. He's not like you think he would be happy to see that his old friends are here, but instead he's like, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, it's one thing that you came here, but you brought Supergirl. She is dead. And it's like, you should know this. Like, you are just pissing me off now. And he's like, look, no, I'm sorry, but like, I couldn't tell her not to come because then she would get suspicious, sort of thing. And I love the fact that he gives them the present. And what does the present say on it? I don't know if we see what it says here. I don't think we find out what it says until like the next issue.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess it was just like a clue. It's just like to give him like a hint on how to survive the ending of the story. But
yeah, I'm trying to find the. Oh yeah, it says this. It said some. Yeah, his supreme hour is what it says. That's what the. His supreme
hour. Okay, so yeah, they're memorializing his supreme hour, which
this is your final like thing, your greatest, your supremest moment or something, which is a weird thing to write on something. Who would write his supreme hour instead of his greatest hour? That doesn't. The future's dumb, is all I'm saying. But I like the fact that he's like, and we're here to, I like that Clark says, pay your last respects. Because Clark's like, there's no other reason you would be here, and you would give me something like that.
Yeah, so is Superman and the Reader are both thinking like, oh, is he about to die? Is he gonna be able to like save all these people he's trying to keep safe in the fortress?
Man, this line he says that it fucks me up because when the Supergirl is, hey, I just thought of something. As the Supergirl of this era, I'm away visiting another time period or something. Because I thought you could. I thought you couldn't materialize in an era where you already existed. And Clark goes, yeah, you're right. Right now, Supergirl's in the past. That is the most heartbreaking fucking thing I've ever seen that man say. Because he's saying that not as in like Supergirl is like traveling the past. He's like, no, she is history.
Yeah, her existence is in the past. Yeah, like he's not lying to her. Like, yeah, from his perspective, Supergirl only exists in the past.
And she probably would be able to tell if she's lying. He's lying the same way all Silver Age superheroes were, especially especially the Kryptonians. Is like his heartbeat would have changed. He's like, oh, I need to say something that is not me lying to you, because everything he says is the truth, but he never says anything past it. Like when she says, "Did I grow up pretty?" He's like, "You were beautiful." Like he doesn't say was beautiful. I think if I remember correctly. Yeah, he just says, "You grew up beautiful, Kara." He doesn't say you were beautiful. He just says, "You grew up beautiful, Kara." He never says like you were, you are. Like he tries not saying it in a way that would like hint that you are super dead right now.
Both Alan Moore and Clark Kent are choosing these words carefully,
and it's wonderful. And then I love the thing that cracks me up is that Supergirl doesn't find anything the Legion says odd when they're leaving, which is where she's like, "Oh, I guess I'll give my regards when I return from the past," and then fucking what is this, Cosmic Boy? He says, "Goodbye, Superman. We will always miss you," and then fucking Cosmic Girl is just
Saturn
like,
Girl.
Saturn Girl. I accidentally said Cosmic. Saturn Girl is like, my eyes are watering. Must be some 20th century virus. And like Supergirl's like, that's not weird at all.
Yeah, Kara not too bright in her young days, I guess.
It just makes me laugh. But my favorite thing about this is that Lois doesn't know about any of this.
No,
she knows about some of it because of the statue. But he doesn't. She and if she does know about it, she makes sure that the guy doesn't find out. Which is, I love this line where he says, "He never told me exactly what happened the night before the siege began, but as soon as I saw him the next morning, I knew something had upset him. He looked funny." And then one of the most heartbreaking pages of any Superman comic in existence, which is he looked as if he had been crying. and it's just him and Crypto just looking on sadly, like just being like, I can't do anything for you.
Is this why Crypto returned from space? Because he knew that Superman needed, he knew that he needed him this night. Like when you have, it's like the night before the final battle of Superman versus his enemies, and he's up all night crying, but the only person in the room with him is Crypto.
It's so sad. It's such a sad moment because it's because I like that the book reminds you that Superman doesn't need to sleep, meaning this guy cried all night, he just stayed there, and he didn't have to go to sleep if he didn't want to. And then comes the I love this cover though, the Action Comics number 583.
Yeah,
which is the goodbye part. It's funny because I love the way it's colored here, and then they recolored it for the cover of the trade I have, and it's a good example of why why coloring changes throughout time. Because this front one is a redrawing. This isn't even just a recoloring, but it is drawing it again because everybody's more detailed on the bottom, and they're in different poses. For instance, Flash is on the right, but he next to Hal, but he's in the middle on this page. I just realized that. But
they add in some real life cameos on that cover too. They have Julie Schwartz and some of the other people who worked at DC are there, waving goodbye at Superman as he's flying away from the Daily Planet building. Yeah,
and it's really, it's very heartfelt. It's and it's something that you won't. It's something I don't think you would ever see ever again. And I don't mean that as a good or a bad thing. I mean that as in the fact that Superman is such an important character that I think this is the only character that would get a story like this in continuity, and it would be real. You know what I mean? Because we did eventually got a Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader, but that was decades later. And it's written by someone we would rather not think about anymore.
Yeah,
which is way worse. And it's just and it's funny to me because it's all of a sudden DC's well, what if we wrote a Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader instead? And they didn't think about it for fucking 20 years. But it shows how important Superman was to the people who worked on it, and the fact that they have a cover like that. Because when you see the covers for Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader, they don't feel as heartfelt about saying goodbye to that character. You know what I mean? Because it's not in the moment. It's disingenuous them saying Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader. Where this is this cover is, to me, is very emotional looking at it, because Superman looks sad that he's leaving, almost he almost looks I don't want to go.
And yeah. This was the last Superman cover by the Curt Swan and Murphy Anderson. They would do a lot of Superman covers together, and they would sign them as Swanderson, combining their names. This is the last Swanderson cover ever.
Yeah, there it is too. It says Swanderson on the left side, and it's heartbreaking to look at this page, and it's weird because I know Superman continues from here on, but when you look at this page, it almost feels like this is the end. And there's something weird about that. That's one of the reasons why I think this comic holds up the way it does. Is as much as I make fun of it, or I'll talk more about it once we talk about this part. But I look at it, and it's just, this is a genuine send off, and that's why it holds up. Because if you talk to a Batman fan and they said, what did you think of Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader? They're well, it was made in 2009. Gaiman wrote it. It's fine. That sort of thing. It's just kind of weird. You would, because it was made at a time where that you're saying goodbye to a character that has long not existed. Because they're not even saying goodbye to that specific character either. Because I remember reading that story. It never even feels like it's saying goodbye to the Silver Age character. Because I only read it once. I don't even remember what happened.
Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader?
Yeah, I don't
It
even
was,
remember it being like about that
yeah, I mean,
sort of thing.
they put it out when Bruce Wayne supposedly died in the comics. Spoiler alert, he didn't really die. But like when they did like, Grant Morrison's big Batman RIP story arc, but nothing in whatever happened to the Caped Crusader mentions or references any of that stuff that was going on in Final Crisis or Batman RIP. So it was very much, that was kind of, I don't know, almost written to be kind of like an evergreen, this is what would happen if Batman died type story that you could just read at any point. But yeah, I always thought it was weird.
It doesn't work the same way because again, this comic is so genuine, a genuine goodbye from everyone who's involved, from the editor to the writer to the artist to the inker to the colorist. Everyone is giving it their all in this story, and I'm so profoundly moved by it because of it. Because there's nothing half-assed in these two issues. Like everyone is giving it their A game to the point where you can't help but feel sad once it's over. You know what I mean? And even with the stuff that I will make fun of later. But it's funny because this issue kind of spoils the ending so fast with how it starts, which is the reveal of Lois's husband, Jordan Elliott.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even mean like him being the reason why it spoils the ending. It's because she immediately mentions what the name of her son is.
Oh yeah, she mentions the baby, little Johnny, little Jonathan.
Why would she name her son Jonathan?
Well, to be fair though, in 1986, Martha and Jonathan Kent they weren't as important to Superman. Yeah, in fact, like this big story here that seems to, go out of its way to address all of the characters in Superman's life, all of the supporting characters, and tie up all the loose ends and end everyone's story, never mentions Ma or Pa. So
yeah, there's they had been long dead. They had died years, like both of them, because it goes the way the Golden Age did, which is they died really when he was young. Like he was like 18, 19 when they all when they died, because they were already pretty old when they raised them.
Mm-hmm.
There's this great story where Jonathan is like somehow transported to the present day. And Clark is just like upset because he's like, it can't be my dad. It's not real. Like he's dead. My dad's long dead. And Jonathan's confused. He's like, why is he so pissed off at me? Like, I don't understand. Like, why would my own son be upset with me? Type of thing. And he's like, and then eventually it's revealed that no, this is Jonathan Kent, time displaced somehow due to some shenanigans. I don't even remember what the shenanigans were, but like, it's a great moment because it's like, Jonathan gets to see what becomes of his son. He gets to see that his son is a great man, and Clark really gets to kind of have a new piece of closure with his dad having died. But that's what makes it funny that you cut this forward in time. It's like, why would Lois name her son after Clark Kent's dad, kind of thing, without it kind of spoils the reveal because it even embolds the name Jonathan. And like, because you can shoo away the fact that Jordan Elliott doesn't look like Clark for the most part. He's got brown hair. He looks like Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards.
He does. He's got the gray temples, the brown hair, the mustache.
Like he like, you wouldn't suspect that guy, and the way he talks is like he has like he tries talking like in a different accent. Like when he says instead of saying "is that coffee," he goes "is that coffee?" Like I don't know what accent he's trying to do, but it's clearly like a different accent that Jordan's doing.
He's trying to talk very like blue collar working class, I think.
Like he might even be trying, and so it's like, and it's funny because the way he talks about Superman in this page is really funny. Because he's like, about her ex, nah, I can live with it. He weren't nothing special. Us ordinary working slobs, son, we're the real heroes. Like, you see them say that, you're like, who the fuck is this?
But when you find out this is Clark, this is kind of like his dream come true. Like he just gets to be like a normal dude, after a lifetime of super.
himself.
Yeah.
It's way funnier. It's way funnier when you realize what's going on, and then like he shakes his hand. And he's like, hey, it's great that you're hearing him talk about this, and he doesn't try to interfere with it. He never once walks in. He never comes in going, well, that's not how it happened. Like
he's a
he
good
lets Lois be the narrator of his story, of his final moments.
Yeah, a good supportive husband. It's like, okay, honey, go enjoy your interview. I'll take care of the baby. I'm just coming to see if you want another cup of coffee. I'll get back to the baby.
It's fascinating to read this part, and then it's funny because his outfit is probably him and Lois's outfit are the most normal of the future ones. He still has the weird sort of shoulder pads, but like it feels more like a jean jacket than the way this guy's outfit is, if that makes sense.
Every page of like the interview stuff where you see the art, they're visually reminding you that it is in the future.
The far off year of 1997.
Yep.
I love that. That's such a funny thing to think about. I like to say that every now and then when I read something from the future. The far off year.
Oh, my favorite is Transformers the movie from 1986. It opens and it has the narrator say, "It is the year 2005."
Yeah, it's like it's so far into the future. And you watch Back to the Future now, and it's like the year 2015. I'm like, that was 10 years ago. Really funny. And then starts the actual siege, which is which Clark does something kind of extreme, which is another what Alan Moore does in this story is he wipes the slate clean in a way that feels like something new would happen afterwards, but in reality it's the ending. It shows the giant key to the fortress, and he just fucking melts that shit like immediately. Like Alan Moore gets to work like right away, wiping everything clean.
Yeah, he gets to destroy some of these like key staples of the Superman lore.
Was that a pun? No, but yeah. Yeah, and so thus begins, the final stand of Superman. And honestly, I call hacks on what happens in this point, because the Legion of Superheroes shows up in the last issue, and all they do is give him a statue, whereas the fucking Legion of Supervillains shows up and just fucking helps Brainiac in the fight. I'm like, this is bullshit.
Yeah, I guess they don't play by the time travel rules. They're like, oh no, we're going to interfere. We're going to get involved in events.
And Brainiac lands. He brings
he has Kryptonite Man. Yeah,
and it's funny because the Legion first thinks it's just Luthor. They're like, hey Lex, do you remember us? We're here to help you kill Superman, type of thing. And I love the fact that they don't just say kill. They like the predestined slaughter of Superman, because to even them, they, as far off in his future of them, the 30th century still thinks that Superman like dies, like that he's like slaughtered in a final battle, like almost the way the Superman Doomsday fight is, where they both kind of beat each other to death. Like they feel like that's what's going to happen, but in reality, it feels like it's a misunderstanding of what's going on in the past, because if they knew everything that happened, they wouldn't have known that Lex was being controlled by Brainiac, or that Brainiac is even there, type of thing. And I love what they say, where they're like, according to legend, Superman meets his greatest foe in battle and was no more. So they think of it, so that's all they know, because it's a legend by the time the 30th century comes around. But that's the reason I call hacks, because the first thing they do is they're just like, well, they say that all his friends are coming, and they're like, oh, that makes sense. I guess I'll set up a force field. It's like, come on, guys. Like the Legion should have told Superman more than like, here's a statue.
I love the force field around the fortress, though, and you see some of the other heroes trying to get in to help out. Like some of the other like standard DC superheroes, like Wonder Woman is there. Vibe, you have Cisco Ramon trying to vibe his way into the fortress. But the funniest part of it to me is that you have Batman and Jason Todd Robin just like hitting it with sticks, trying to force their way in.
Like, hit it harder, Robin. While, like, Shazam or Captain Marvel is up there punching it. I think this is Superwoman, I think, still at this point, is also punching it. Because she has a Superman S on her back once you finally see her again. It's the wording, though, that's really interesting that Alan Moore does here. It says, with Twilight, other heroes began arriving outside the barrier. Those that were his friends, those that were almost his rivals, and then this is the one that's, like, really weird. Those that might have been his lovers, it didn't matter, none of them could penetrate it. And it's like, it's funny because we know what he means, but if you don't, it makes it way funnier to think that he's talking about Batman.
Yes. I think he meant to imply like, oh yeah, Wonder Woman and Superman have hooked up. But yeah, you can easily read that as Batman. Easily.
Yeah, him and Jason Todd were a throuple. No. But, and then, there's the reveal here that Kryptonite Man, for some reason, his powers are just, they're tenfold for, like, and he's not sure why. And it's the reason why they both don't just immediately, like, fuck up the Kryptonite Man. Because that's the thing about Kryptonite Man. Kryptonite Man was not exactly, like, overly powerful. It's just that he was just made of kryptonite, essentially. So Superman couldn't just punch him willy-nilly because he didn't have the power. Like, if Captain Marvel was there, Kryptonite Man would have gone down like a sack of potatoes type of thing. Like, he would have been strong, but it wouldn't have, he would not have had as many issues. And then comes the scene that I had hinted at when we were talking about For All Seasons, which is the moment where Clark decides that he now knows at the end who he truly loved at the end, and it was Lois Lane, and it wasn't Lana.
Yeah, when he has that heart to heart, I guess almost like a confession to Perry White. It's this battle is going on like multiple days. You have like a Superman and Krypto driven off by Kryptonite Man, and then Superman hanging out in the fortress at night talking to Perry about like his connections to Lois and Lana, and
I love that he's just like, he feels like such a coward for not choosing. Like, he spent years like essentially stringing them both along without meaning to. And he's just like, I feel like such an asshole. I feel like a coward that all I could have done is that if I just explained to them at the beginning that I like Lana, but only because Lana is my past. She's a part of me. And we've all had this, the one that got away from our old hometowns type of thing. You think back to them and you're like, man, I really love that person. But in reality, you didn't really. Like, it's just, they were a connection to your past that once you let go, you were able to move on. But the difference between us and like Clark is that she didn't fucking like leave his ass alone. So it's harder to move on when that person is staring you in the face, going, "So we're gonna get married? What are you gonna do?"
His high school ex followed him to Metropolis and got a job working at the same place with him. So
yeah, it's like if my girlfriend had to deal with my ex every day, and while I worked with them, by the way, it would be like, what do you do with that?
and it's admittedly not a great way to handle these relationships, but I think it was like Alan Moore just trying to be thoughtful and come up with a satisfying way to explain why Clark never moved forward with Lois, why he never told her he's Superman, why he never tried to pursue a real romantic relationship with her, because like he didn't want to break Lana's heart. He couldn't bring himself to do it.
Yeah, it was, a lot of people don't realize this, but for a long time it was the three of them were the ultimate will they won't they. And it wasn't because, and in the beginning it was obvious that Lois and Clark were always meant to be together, the way, because eventually Golden Age Superman became Earth 2, and Earth 2 was like, well, of course it's Lois. Like, who else would it be? So in the Silver Age universe, Lana was very much a very important part, a very important plot and character to Clark Kent from beginning to end, to the point where like the three and Silver Age was really, really stupid when it came to that. It treated it the way Archie Comics treats Betty and Veronica.
Yeah.
but with a little more seriousness here and there, only because Alan Moore finally was like, I get to write the ending of the will they, won't they, and of course he made the right choice. Imagine if Alan Moore did that and was like, it's always been Lana. That would have been really fucking funny.
Yeah, no, that would not have been as satisfying. But and then the way that he kind of turns the knife is that while that conversation is going on, you have Lana and Jimmy Olsen just nosing around the fortress. They bring up this. I've never read the story that I guess this references, but Lana, this is so Silver Agey. She decides to take a dip in the hot tub, and then oh, it turns out this was magic lake water that gives you superpowers from a previous story.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's she mentions that Lois also did it, meaning honestly, if Lana had just told Lois her plan, she might have done it too, but she didn't, and then because they both would have heard what was going on, and then Jimmy, having one of his many things that he has done in his life, he happened to find the Elastic Lad one.
Yeah, he goes Elastic Lad. So
I kind of wish he did Turtle Man because that would have been interesting if he did that one instead.
But
they probably would have won easily though if it was Turtle Man.
Speaking of Pedro Pascal, Reed Richards, I think Jimmy Olsen gets more stretchy action in this story than Pedro Pascal got in that entire Fantastic Four movie.
Yes, thank you. That's one of my biggest issues with that movie. I still don't like. That is my biggest issue with that movie. That's why my actual review is just not enough stretching every time. But yeah, it's very heartbreaking because she starts feeling the power, and as that's happening, Clark mentions he's like, there's only ever been one woman for me, Lois, beautiful Lois, and that's what she hears. She hears the whole thing. You see, back when I was Superboy, Lana was the only girl I loved. She still represents Smallville to me, that part of my life, and besides that, I could never cast her aside. She hears that whole thing that he says, and that must have been such a swift kick to the dick type of thing. Mentally, metaphorically, yeah. is what I mean in this one.
Yeah,
and she still goes along with the plan.
Super hearing will make you regret having super hearing. It'll make you be like, yeah, did you really want to hear all this? That's another thing they did in Superman for All Seasons, by the way, though, with Clark hearing Ma and Pa on the porch talk about him. Yeah, it's funny though, because when Jimmy asks Lana if anything's wrong, she says something that I always thought was really heartbreaking, but is also kind of funny because she's also talking shit about everybody else. Which is, she's like, look, we're only the second stringers, but we'll show him that nobody loved him better than us. Nobody. In reality, she's saying, she's not talking about Jimmy. She's talking about herself. She's like, nobody loved him better than me, type of thing, is what she's saying. She might as well be talking shit about Lois as one of the last things she's ever says. Yeah, so she thinks she's got to go out there with these superpowers and prove herself to This is my least favorite part of the story. I think it is kind of cool to have superpowered Lana and then Elastic Lad Jimmy Olsen, get in on some of the action. But He's begging, yeah, Lana, kill me.
And she just fucking breaks his neck, with a karate chop. And that's the end of Lex Luthor. That's so anticlimactic, but also, again, as you said, it's so funny because it's like that means Lex's end was a footnote in the final story of Superman, where Lex used to be his biggest like rival.
Yeah, I think I love that being like the ultimate insult. As much as this did disappoint me when I originally read it as just like a fan of that Lex Luthor Superman rivalry, but there's a part of me now that like I really appreciate it looking back.
Yeah, and then comes the part that I hate the most, which is the fact that they're like, we're from the future, we read her mind, and then we just took her power away and then just like murder her all of a sudden. And you're like, what? Okay, I guess. And then Jimmy gets shot in the back and he dies.
Yeah, Legion of Superheroes just unceremoniously dismiss Lana Lang and Jimmy Olsen, both just like quickly killed.
Like, it frustrates me because it's just like, this would have been more impactful if it was like all of his, like if they had died because of like Metallo or something, or maybe if like you wrote the story like, what if the reason Lana lost her powers is because Parasite took her powers or something. Like, that's how I would have wrote that scene type of thing, instead of like, oh, it was because of we made the water less magical. It's like, what? No, fuck you. And then Jimmy just gets shot and then he dies, and we're like, what? Okay.
Yeah.
And
hey, that inspired something in the Zack Snyder movies.
It did, unfortunately. And then, then comes the thing that where Brainiac is now piloting a dead Lex.
It's so creepy looking. The Lex Luthor is standing up with the broken neck, and his head is just always like tilted to the side. But Brainiac just like won't let him rest. Even in death, he won't release control of him. Yeah,
and he knows, like, he's like, yeah, all of his stuff is still intact, but I don't think it's gonna last much longer than that. And then there's the it's not the reveal, but it's something that was hinted at a lot the last time, but just it isn't until this very moment, which is that the force field's still up even though the generator's gone, meaning that something is still happening here. And even Brainiac's like, I don't understand, I don't give a fuck, I'm going to fulfill my destiny, because to Brainiac's mind, he's like, it's not Lex who's his greatest foe, it's got to be me, Brainiac. So I don't care that scientifically that force field should have gone down. This is still my chance to fulfill what you guys told me is supposed to happen. And then there's the sweet moment where, because it's mentioned earlier, where when they're attacked, Perry saves Alice, and Perry and Alice make up before things are fucked. And they just kind of fuck off. That's the thing that makes me laugh about Perry and Alice. They just go to another room and then no one bothers them.
Are they still there? Are they still in the fortress? Like do they just live there now? They just live the rest of their lives in Superman's fortress? That
would be funny. No, I think it's funny because everything that happens after this is okay. The thing I hate about this issue, or not hate, but you know what I mean, is that the reason it would be made fun of today is that everything that happens in this issue feels like an Injustice comic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's dialed up to that extra level of, like, I don't know, mean-spirited brutality.
Yeah, everybody starts dying in, like, less interesting ways. Because, like, for instance, when this is the reason I bring up why a lot of them are made fun of. One is like the way Nightwing died in Injustice. He tripped, his neck fell on a tiny piece of rock, and he died instantly. That's how he dies in Injustice. Super unceremoniously, but kind of brutal just all of a sudden.
I had no idea about that. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, he dies
dumb as hell.
He dies like fucking $1 Million Baby, like, but even less interesting. Because it's Damian's fault, which is the worst part. Because early on, that comic's like, oh, Damian used to keep throwing his baton at him whenever he was mad, and Dick would always grab it, being like, ha ha, fuck you, type of thing, like the way two brothers would. And then, but that's the one time he wasn't paying attention, and then he fucking dies. It's like, what? No, that's stupid. And so Batman's like, you killed my son, and it's just like, no, this is dumb. I hate all of this. And then the way Kyle Rayner dies in that was like really unnecessarily brutal. Like, he's torn apart in space. Like, everybody who dies in Injustice is like, what was the point of this? All you did was kill people to kill people. And that's what happened to Jimmy. That's what happens to Lana. The only one I think that I'm like, this bums me out immensely, but at the same time, he went out much better than the others, is what happens to Crypto. Which is that the Kryptonite Man attacks, and then, God damn it, this the first time I read this, I put the thing down. I was like, I don't think I want to read this anymore. Did you want to tell it?
The final showdown between Kryptonite Man and Crypto.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
also really fast. It's 2 pages.
It is, but Curt Swan, like, he draws the hell out of that dog, and he gives them like a cool, like, fierce expression, and then like that. Just the heartbreaking part though is like after you don't actually see like Crypto like bite into Kryptonite Man, but like, he takes like a chunk out of him or something, because like the next panel you see like Kryptonite Man like laying down in a pool of his green blood, but like
my assumption is he ripped out his throat.
Yeah, that makes sense, but the heart wrenching part is like the howl, like the ow that like that they illustrate coming out of Crypto as he succumbs to the glowing green kryptonite poisoning and dies. But
the most fucked up part about it is that when he dies, he becomes bright green. When he just dies, and he's just there. His tongue. The worst part is the way that he draws that his like tongue is sticking out, his eyes are still open. And like the line that he puts here, or that where they talk about it, because Lois is still the one narrating, where she's just like, Pete, Ross, Lana, Jimmy, now Crypto was gone as well. I was with Superman when he heard his pet's death howl, but we couldn't do anything, and that is the most heartbreaking thing. As an owner of pets, and we both know that's one of the most heartbreaking things we could think of. That like not only does he hear the death of his beloved pet, but he can't do a goddamn thing about it. And also there's a Ted McFarlane variant of Crypto where he's bright green.
Oh,
you remember that? You remember that Superman I showed you of the 2-pack of Superman and Crypto?
Yeah.
There's a variant which is way easier to find because nobody wants it, where both Superman and Crypto are bright green.
Yeah, that's dark. I wouldn't want
I wouldn't want that figure. You get
the
that
kryptonite poised Crypto. Yeah, that's a cursed toy.
and that Superman was ugly to begin with, and now he's bright green. So I would never own that in a million years. But that's why it's super easy to find because of it. Because it's like nobody wants that. And then comes another part that, again, like I don't feel like these guys got off so easily. The Legion of Supervillains.
They just leave, right? They just like run away. They're like, oh, Superman's really mad now that his ex-girlfriend and his dog and his pal Jimmy Olsen are all dead. Maybe we should leave.
It's really funny because they show up. They're like, we're here to make sure you die. And then he burns like one of them in the arm. And they both go, oh, this is serious shit.
Yeah, he burns Lightning Lord, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, let's just get out of here." So that's kind of
like they assume that he got like he got eviscerated. They assumed that the siege was like they thought it was like the Alamo for some reason. They thought like the siege was like everybody showed up and then everybody inside died immediately. They thought. I don't know why they thought that was the case.
They're like, "Oh, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. I don't want to do this anymore. Let's go home."
Yeah, they're like, oh wow, this takes effort. I'm just gonna leave. Like those guys killed Lana and they just leave. It's like they don't get a comeuppance, and that's really what frustrates me the most about them.
Yeah,
they just leave.
Yeah, the Lana Jimmy Legion of Super villain thing, like that's easily the weakest part of the story that could have been handled better. And you pointed out like the inconsistencies with how the Legion of Superheroes could interact with the past, but not like for some reason that doesn't apply to the super villains. It's
like, if anything, what he should have done was that they give him the statue, but then they stay and they help them fight the Legion of Superheroes to make sure that the past stays the way it's supposed to. That's what you should have done with those threads, type of thing. Like, you can even leave that Supergirl still around to help out, type of thing for those guys. Like, there's a lot you could have done with that, but I think part of it comes down to like he's like, I need to get to point A to point B. and I don't have enough time and enough villains to make this work, or something. I don't know what his thought process was on that.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with Jimmy and Lana. Oh, I'll just have like the Legion of Supervillains show up and take care of them, and then get in their time bubble and leave.
And then just fuck off. And then comes the reveal that I thought it's another anticlimactic reveal, but it works again the same way. Because you keep thinking, who is his ultimate foe? You think it's going to be Lex, Brainiac takes over Lex, and then Lex dies. And then Brainiac finally shows up to confront Superman, and you think it's going to be like, oh, it's going to be this great showdown or something, or maybe he's going to use the ship to attack Superman. It's going to be like this amazing showdown or something. No, Lex's body hits rigor mortis in the middle of a frozen tundra and just stops working. He can't even shoot him with the pistol that he has. He just fucking falls over. And then Brainiac doesn't even have enough power to, like, get his leg.
Yeah.
It's like, really funny.
The little, like, spider robot thing that, like, this, I don't know, like, the Brainiac robot head became, like, the helmet on top of Lex Luthor's head to, like, control his body. And then after he uses that body to, like, it can't work anymore. And this is, like, this little, like, spider robot skull thing crawling around on the snow. And then it just, like, even it breaks down.
Yeah, he just starts coming at him. He's like, I'll get you. And he just, like, slows down and he just fucking falls over and dies. That's, like, again, it's such an anticlimactic end to what you think is going to be a great foe. You keep waiting for what the fuck he means by the great foe. And then the reveal. That reveal got me. And it got me real bad at the time. Especially because of the way Mxyzptlk is treated as a character in a lot of things. And it's such a great thing to do with him. I don't know, like, when he appears, he looks, even his colors are darker.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got this little bull hat on, but everything on him is darker. His eyes look like he hasn't slept in days, type of thing. Like, he looks evil.
Like, Lois points out, like, oh, he doesn't look funny anymore. Like, he looks scary.
Yeah, and it's funny because you think that maybe Alan Moore probably meant something different, but Curt Swan couldn't help but still draw him the same way, type of thing. He's just like, but I need to, like, kind of show that he's, like, kind of mean now, and so he draws him just kind of wearing dark. Like, he looks like he's going through a goth phase more than anything, if that makes sense.
And he talks about going through different phases as like a fifth dimensional imp. He lives for so long that, you know, he decided to be like a trickster for a little bit, and now he decides he's going to be this, like, mass murdering god for a little bit.
It's funny because it's like Superman's just like, why would you do all this? And I like that he's like, I've been around forever, man. Like, when he's just changed gears. Like,
yeah.
It's funny because it's not the first time I've ever heard that. It's the first time it's probably was ever put in, that I know of fiction, because I'm sure it's happened before. But I remember Team 4-Star made a joke about that about Frieza, because Frieza's like, I'm gonna get immortality, and the first couple centuries I'll just be kind of nice and just like a decent ruler, and then bam, go full on tyrant, and then just disappear for like a millennia, and they're like, oh, well, I wonder if he ever existed, and then just show back up and fuck up their lives, type of thing. It's like, that's how Mxyzptlk is seeing life. He's just like, yeah, what if I'm just like really awesome for a while, and then one day I just go crazy, and then maybe I go back. Who knows? I don't fucking care. And it's funny, the reason I bring up the way Mxyzptlk is treated nowadays is because there's a thing about Mixie that's it's a common fan theory, as well as some theories. Some comics try to make it a canon thing, which is that every Mxyzptlk is the same among all media. Which is the idea that Mixie from Superman the Animated Series is the same Mixie that shows up in fucking Super Friends. He's the same Mixie who shows up in the My Adventures with Superman. He's the same Mixie the whole way through. And this is the only instances that ruins that idea, is this version of Mixie. And if it doesn't, it also kind of ruins the end of the story.
But to be fair, this is classified as a quote-unquote imaginary story. So
yes, there's only one other story that did something similar to which was with what happens is the part where he's like, did you honestly believe a fifth dimensional sorcerer would resemble a funny little man in a derby hat, and then he transforms into something. What I love about it is that like Lois keeps telling him she talks about Mixie the way they talk about Cthulhu, which is he's just like he's a being that you're not really sure what you're looking at. It makes like you can't really look at him. You can't really fathom him. Like just looking at him makes your head hurt type of thing.
Yeah, they're being like, if there are 5 dimensions to this being, then it probably would be like what she describes. He has height, length, breadth, and a couple of other things. It's like she doesn't have words for it.
And it's great. I love that. And there's, like I said, there's one other story that made a. I don't even remember what it was. It was like a backup of something. I want to say it was a backup of a Superman, Batman, or maybe even American Alien. I can't remember. But it's Mixie. Mixie shows up, and he talks to the reader, and he's like, yeah, this is what you see me as. It's like, but what if I was something else? And he gets like grotesque for a quick second, and then goes back to like the way we know him as. He's like, but who knows? That's the only other time that this sort of thing is ever referenced, which is the idea that Mixie chooses to be what you see, because otherwise, maybe his true form is horrendous. And then comes in the statue. The one goddamn thing the Legion does for him.
Yeah, the Legion of Supervillains can kill my high school sweetheart and my best friend, but all you guys can do is give me this little cryptic statue.
And then he decides to do something I thought was interesting with, as she realizes what it is. It's a Phantom Zone projector. I love that it shows that the Phantom Zone guys are still in Phantom Zone, and every time when he shows up to grab it, she just puts, as I remembered, from a screen at one end, pale men with murderous eyes mouth obscenities at us. So the idea is that he shows up, grabs the Phantom Zone, but as he's grabbing it, fucking Zod is yelling out slurs to him the entire time, telling him to go fuck himself. And he's like, "Oh, we'll fucking kill you, man." He's like, "I don't have time for your bullshit."
Zod and Jaxer and Feora and all the other Kryptonian prisoners in there watching this guy.
Mixie's end is so interesting to me. The way Mixie's end is that the projector's turned on, and Mixie realizes what's happening. This is the thing that I always thought was funny, because Mixie's all powerful, so he could have just left the Phantom Zone whenever he wanted to. But I guess Alan Moore decided that he was going to panic instead.
Yeah, he panics, and I like that it's Superman having to use his head, having to like outsmart his enemies. He even says in here, like, I knew he would panic like this, but
and the way he says when he does it, that's right, Mixie'll spit like, time to die.
But yeah, no, that's an important plot beat. Superman is forced to kill his greatest foe, Mixie-Spitalik.
Like I know he's like referencing what Mixie says, which is like, "Oh, there you are, time to die," I think. And I know he's saying it that way, but he means it, like, legitimately. Like, it's not a snarky comeback. He's like, "Oh no, one of us is gonna die, but it's not gonna be me."
Yeah. But just like the way that the art illustrates it, but like this idea, I thought it was like pretty clever to use the Phantom Zone projector like this. But the idea is that Mixie-Spitalik is so powerful he can teleport anywhere, and I guess like this Kryptonian technology, Phantom Zone projector is pretty damn good at like putting something in the Phantom Zone. So basically, it caused like a split in Mixie-Spitalik because of the way it was timed out. He both returned to the 5th dimension and was sent to the Phantom Zone at the same time. So it's split the existence of his entity into two.
My favorite thing is you can kind of figure out which side is doing which, because one side feels more like it's teleporting like normally, because it's kind of like you see almost like a fog around it that shows that it's like a normal type of way, and then the other side is being forcefully like moved in one direction.
Yeah, it's like being distorted away.
And so it's like clear that he got ripped in half from the top down, which is horrifying to think about. And it's just, and he lets out this like guttural scream. Like, what is it that she says about it? She says that terrible scream, and then she just says, "Is he?" And I love his explanation. He's like, he panicked when he saw the ray, and he made a fatal error, just as I knew he would. I killed him, and I intended to kill him. And this is the thing that I found interesting, is that this only works in this version of Superman. And the reason I say only this one is because we always say that Superman doesn't kill. And we talk about that all the time. It's the reason why a lot of us have issues with specific interpretations of Superman. But the modern Superman has never really said that he doesn't kill, just that it's his last resort type of thing, usually. Although, like, there are versions in the modern continuity that says that I don't kill. Like when he fought Imperiex, for instance, where he's like, "Well, Superman doesn't kill, so I'm just gonna launch you into the Big Bang during our World's War." But modern Superman, there's a lot of storylines where he's like, Doomsday's too dangerous to let go. In a way, where he's like, if I don't end him now, then no one's going to end him, and that's what happens in that storyline. And we all give John Byrne shit for what he does to Zod and everything, which creates the exile story. But it comes down to the fact that he feels really bad about all that stuff. But he never quits being Superman outright during all that stuff. And that's the reason why what happens here about going, I intended to kill him, and that becomes the reason why he decides that he doesn't want to be Superman anymore. Because the Silver Age is the only one who truly believed that the whole way through. Because even Golden Age Superman was kind of a crazy person. That man probably killed a few people, type of thing. And I love what she says here when this moment he says where he's like, nobody has the right to kill, not Mixel Spitlick, not you, and not Superman, especially not Superman. He turned and walked away in complete silence. I ran after him, calling his name. He didn't reply. By the time I realized where he was heading, it was too late. And it's this apparently a gigantic storage chamber full of gold kryptonite. He just had a bunch of it for some reason. And this, I will never forget this image for the rest of my life, by the way, as him walking into it. And she just goes, as he walked in the blinding golden light, he turned and looked back over his shoulder. He smiled at me. I never saw Superman again.
Again, she's not lying. Like, she never
did see him
again as Superman.
So that was the end of Superman. And it's the thing that keeps being said. Everybody kept misinterpreting what it meant. Even the Legion of Superheroes misinterprets probably what it meant about him. No longer, that Superman is no more. And it's a lot of things that that happens in a lot of stories like this where they're like, and then that character was no more. Some people are like, oh, that means they died, right? It's like, well, that's not really what that means all the time. People can retire. Like you can be like, the Green Lantern was no more. It's like, well, yeah, because sometimes it's like, oh, because one guy, like, maybe he got fired. Maybe Hal Jordan got fired. That's why the Green Lantern's no more, or that kind of thing. Like, those are the types. Though the wording was chosen deliberately for that story to work, and then the scene of everybody finding everybody, like once the force field's down, I thought was so interesting because Vibe, for some reason. Vibe is holding Lana as like, did Vibe know Lana very well? Like, why is Vibe so distraught by that?
I guess, like, at this point in time, the DC superheroes, they don't know each other's secret identities for the most part, right? So, like, Lois, I mean, I guess all of these people know that Clark Kent is Superman, but Lois doesn't include any of them on the fact that he actually does survive the fortress. They're all under the assumption that, like, oh yeah, he depowered himself with gold kryptonite, which permanently removes a Kryptonian's powers, and then he just wandered off into the Arctic, into the snow to die.
Yeah, the entire Justice League assumes that Superman is long gone. Like, the Justice League, Batman especially, like, Batman is his best friend, and even it's hinted at the idea that Batman has no idea what happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
and it's Batman and Robin find crypto, and I love the line she mentions where it's like those most loyal friends. I remember the Batman describing it as like walking among the fragments of a legend when they find like everything that was there, death and destruction. Like nothing is going to be the same from then on. Like, and then I like that it cuts to them walking by Alice and Perry, who were just in a room. They just locked themselves in a room and nobody fucked with them. So
I guess they eventually get home to Metropolis. The Perry and Alice thing, though, it does show that, like, oh yeah, Superman, like he does really, like, he sees that as like beautiful, like this old couple who had like this like long life and marriage together. Like that is something like important to him. It kind of like hints that like that is something that Superman would consider a happy ending for himself, probably.
Yeah, I like that Lois. It's obvious that what happened eventually, besides what happened in the beginning, which is the way Lois treats what happens, where she goes, after they found me outside the locked old kryptonite chamber weeping, and when they checked the, I'm just paraphrasing, when they checked the vaults, it was empty, and that he, it's what we said, like he depowered himself and he walked out in the snow, and he most likely died. But it's the way she says it, because she just goes, they never found his body. More coffee? Like, she's not broken up about it. It's the biggest hint of what the ending is, is the fact that she talks about it so nonchalantly, and he's like, I'm gonna go. It's basically like, because he feels bummed out, and she's kind of surprised she's not bummed out. And I love what he says, where he's like, what do you think of the rumors that Superman is still alive somewhere? And she's like, I would like to believe that, but as far as I'm concerned, Superman died in the Arctic. I was there. And again, she never lies to him the whole time. Mm-hmm. And so he leaves. I love that he mentions Jim Morrison and Bruce Lee were those rumors as well. Because that was, and I'm happy to bring up Elvis, because that would have been funny if they brought that up too.
Yeah, or I guess JFK Jr. is one nowadays. That wouldn't have been a conspiracy theory yet in the 1980s. That he didn't die until like 97 or 98 maybe.
It was a while later,
but yeah, it's the same thing. Like oh, he could still be out there.
And the reveal is great, because the real reveal besides the name is when you look at the sun, because the sun clearly has Clark Kent's Superman hair.
That son looks like Clark. That is the grandson of Jor-El, who at this time was drawn to look identical to Kal-El, and now like little baby Jonathan Elliott looks like that same face, even as like the little spit curl.
And it's great, because it wasn't until like they start talking about it. I like how she says that, well, he's gone. I guess the media won't be bothering us for another 10 years now. And he's just like, well, let's hope so. And it's funny, because it's like, you don't even, my favorite thing is the book never outright tells you the reason their name is the way it is. Like, you, the reader, have to figure that out on your own, which his name is Jordan Elliott. And I remember not realizing what the fuck, why his name was Jordan Elliott, until somebody finally pointed out to me why his name was Jordan Elliott.
I don't think I know this then. Explain
you not
to
know
me.
Why his name is Jordan Elliott?
No, why?
It's Jor-El.
Oh, yeah, Jor-El. Duh.
And you want to know one of the other reasons why some people started figuring it out eventually? It was because of Superman and Lois, because he named his son Jordan.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, well,
because he's named after both of his dads. He's named the twins are named after both of his dads in Superman and Lois.
Right. Yeah, you have Jonathan and Jordan. So,
and there's another comic where they do the same thing. It's called Superman in the Infinite City, I think was the name of it. Because he meets this other guy who's supposed to be either a clone or it's like another version of him or something like that. But he's trying to play coy with who he is. And they're like, "What's your name?" It's Calvin Elliott. And so it's like, Kal-El is what he's calling him. And I remember, the book never tells you that that's why his name is Jordan Elliott. And I love the fact that it shows, without doing anything to show that Jonathan has superpowers, because he crushes a random piece of coal that they have. I don't know why they have a random set of coal.
Well, it's a UK thing. It's like,
reasons.
in the UK, they would like have burning coal in houses more common than burning wood in houses.
In the far off year of 1997.
Yeah, I don't, but like, it was Alan Moore wanting a convenient way to show this kid is the son of Superman by like, look, he can casually crush a piece of coal that he happens to have access to in his house into a diamond. But
I love when she says, you were pretty hard on Superman. It's like, Superman, he was overrated and too wrapped up in himself. I love, though, that, like, the ending is that, like, Lois might as well be like, when Jonathan goes to bed, let's go to town on each other. And he's like, oh, yeah. that's literally how this thing ends.
That's so key to the ending I think Moore wanted. Yeah, like the line, like, oh, yeah, we'll have a bed and a bottle of wine, and after that live happily ever after. But basically, like, the way the story ends is Alan Moore is his childhood superhero Superman. He's saying like, okay, that's concluded. All of those childish adventures, they eventually come to an end. And now that Superman is retired from that, now he can do like the grown-up things. Now he can do like the one thing that he never got to do in like all of the Silver Age continuity. Have this happy life with Lois and actually get laid. Like now we have a Superman who fucks. And that's the end. That's the culmination of Moore's childhood hero.
It's the ending that he deserves in a way that this has always been the difference between Superman and Batman. Superman has always deserved the happy ending at the end, where Batman will never let himself have a happy ending. The second Superman's presented with like, hey, do you want to be a normal person? He's like, do I? Like, he'll just do it because he's like, as long as the world's fine and I get to be a normal person, I'm perfectly fine. That's what's great about the line he says where Superman's overrated. He was so full of himself, he thought the world couldn't last without him because he was so wrapped up in the fact that he's like, he never once thought, if I stopped being Superman and just lived a normal life, and that the rest of the heroes would pick up the slack. And it got proven to him. The rest of them picked up the slack. There was never a moment where he's like, this looks like a job for Superman. I gotta figure out to get my powers back. He's like, no, he got to have his happy ending. And the reason I brought up the fact that this story has then, from then on, the reason the story is so influential is it's one of the few stories that gives the hero not only the ending, but an ending that wasn't like the way those other stories where the Punisher the end or the Hulk the end or any of those the ends. Because a lot of those the ends are like, and then they had one final battle and then they died horribly, or they had one final battle and the whole rest of the world is dead. Like,
right. They go out in a blaze of glory, like that noble death or whatever. But no, Superman gets like the ending he deserves. He does get to live happily ever after with Lois.
Yeah, and Superman does go in a blaze of glory, but not the way you think he would go down in a blaze of glory. It's not the Superman versus Doomsday fight. It's not even the All-Star Superman way of going out with a bang. It ends because Superman goes out with a bang, but not because, and it's not even a bang, it's a whimper, because it's the last gasp of his no kill rule is what happens. It's not even like he didn't kill anyone up until that exact moment. They all killed themselves, except for Krypto killed that Kryptonite man. He had nothing to do with that shit. He's like, I washed my hands of that one. I had nothing to do with that. Krypto did that.
Blame it on the dog.
It's like, I told him don't do that, and he did it, and I don't know what to tell you. But and this story has permeated Superman for years since then. And my favorite example, I will bring this up because a lot of people were upset about this when it happened, and which is the did you watch the CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths? Mm-hmm. It was a reveal that happens that people were upset about because of their love of Smallville.
Oh yeah,
they loved Smallville. The entirety of Smallville is like, we're watching Clark Kent become Superman, and then the CW Crisis on Infinite Earths happened. They wanted to get Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum back for like a little bit because there was no way they were going to have them for very long and have a big scene. And what they did, I think, is perfect because I like to think of TV Smallville Clark Kent as one of the closest things we ever got to Silver Age Superman in live action television. Because George Reeves' Superman was very golden age for what he was. All of his stuff was, there was never really like a love triangle type thing that was going on. There was some wacky stuff, but it was never, but due to budget reasons, you could only be so wacky. And then when Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman happened, you know, that was all, you know, modern Superman stuff. And the reason I don't bring up the Superboy show is because that's a Superboy show. That's like, you know, the normal Superboy. That's the Silver Age Superboy. We got all Silver Age Superboy stuff. But Smallville was like Silver Age Superman in the fact that he had this massive love triangle. He had all these insane things that were happening to him at all times. There were weird ass fucking villains throughout that world. There were witches at one point. There was like, he dealt with the stupidest goddamn things during Smallville, but we were perfectly fine with it because it's Superman dealing with the stuff. And at the end he is Superman by the time it's done. And so all we have done is we skipped to the ending of whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow by the time we catch up with him when we get to that CW one. Because the only difference is that Clark is still Clark when they see them. He's not going by Jordan Elliott, but it's the exact same ending. Clark has given up being Superman. The world's doing just fine. He's married to Lois. He has a daughter. I think he has twins. I think I can't remember. Either way, he has kids, and he's perfectly fine just living a normal life because the same way Smallville Superman, the same way Silver Age Superman never got to be normal. That's exactly what happened to Smallville Clark Kent. Is he never really got a chance to be normal after his powers start appearing. And so that's why that scene works for me immensely, because the CW basically acknowledges that like this Superman got his happy whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow ending.
Do they mention gold kryptonite in that? As I know he's depowered in the crossover, but I can't remember what the reasoning for it was.
They never explained it actually. There's never an explanation. There's one fan theory that I like. So in Smallville, blue kryptonite takes away Kryptonians' powers, but only as long as you have it with you. So what the fan theory is that Clark has a watch on.
He had it in his watch, yeah.
And he has a blue watch face. So people's theories are that he just wears the watch at all times to be a normal guy. And because of it, he's not affected by kryptonite anymore. Because all you have to do is, because with the blue kryptonite, all you have to do is just not have it on you anymore, and you're fine. Because that was the thing about it. And so that's that. So it's never explained, but that's the theory. But it's never been like confirmed by anybody. So
yeah, it could have just been that Tom Welling was wearing a blue watch when they shot that, or that could have been intentional. Bless you.
Yeah. And then there's one other thing that I know for a fact references this, and it was Jeff Loeb who did it. It was for Public Enemies. If you remember that.
There was a lot of different colored kryptonite.
I mean the ending of the story. Because in Superman, Batman, Public Enemies, there's a Superman that goes back in time to be like, hey, when you guys destroy the giant meteor,
the time traveler. Yeah.
It kills everyone, and they're like, well, what do we do? And so, you know, Captain Atom meets that old Superman because he's like, the world's dead. And then when everything's fixed, he wakes up outside of a cabin, and he looks just like Jordan Elliott does here. And she says, where have you been? I was wondering whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow. And he just goes, no one's called me that in years. And he just walks in. He just walks into the cabin. And I was like, that's really sweet that somebody decided to like try making that canon again to some type of timelines of Superman.
I'll have to go back and reread that, because back when that storyline came out, I had not read this yet. So I read that Jeff Loeb stuff before I read this Alan Moore story. So it probably make more sense now. I remember being kind of confused by some of the time travel stuff in that.
Yeah, the idea is that for some reason, in Jeff Loeb's head that, in his mind, the ending of all Supermans, especially because this is still modern Superman by the time Jeff Loeb did it.
Right.
In Jeff Loeb's mind, whatever happened tomorrow most likely is how he envisions Superman's end, probably too. So, but that shows how powerful that story is, because of the fact that even modern comic writers and TV writers and stuff still view that as that. And even the way Superman and Lois ends kind of ends in a way where
he gets depowered. Yeah, like he has a very, he kind of just becomes like a normal guy in that as well. So
yeah, and he gets he basically gets his happy ending too. The only difference is that we, unlike Jordan Elliott, we see how it all ends for Superman and Lois, and not just like the snapshot of everything being fine.
Well, like the story definitely made like a big impression, had a long-lasting impact on the industry, and like a lot of other writers, like you're talking about with Jeff Loeb and guys who came later. So yeah, I think Julie Schwartz chose wise with Alan Moore as the guy to write this final story for Silver Age Superman. Just there's always like that funny story that Alan Moore put his hands around Julie Schwartz's neck and told him, like, you have to let me write the final Superman story. And Alan Moore says that never happened. Julie Schwartz likes to tell like that colorful story, or that's what he would say when he was alive. But yeah, who knows how it actually went down? But whatever the case, I think it did turn out for the best. This was the story that only Alan Moore would have told in 1986, and it's still pretty impressive today to look back on, and its impact is still felt.
Its impact is so wildly felt. Again, I don't know how it affected James Gunn. The more I read it, the more I'm like, how
the fight at the fortress and Lex. You have like Arctic Gear Lex. That's about the only thing. Oh, that and like the dumb the tape recorder at the beginning. Those are the only things I could find.
It makes some sense, I guess. I don't know. It's just kind of funny because I know with the last books we've been able to talk about, like, it's clearly where he got this and that from. It's like, I have no fucking idea.
Oh, and there's
the idea that Clark and Lois love each other. I don't know.
There's some crypto action. We get some crypto action in
this.
That's
true. So. We did get some crypto action. I guess the idea is that crypto can be a fierce dog. Is the idea probably, but even then, that's not. This isn't my favorite. My favorite time crypto's ever been a fierce dog. My favorite is still that one where he beats up that kind of Hercules type dude. It's got this great Alex Ross cover. It was part of
Atlas.
Atlas was part of the new Krypton like follow or lead up to.
Yeah, that was James Robinson, the Starman guy, wrote that, right?
That story is so great.
Yeah, it's one that people don't talk about either. But yeah,
it's funny because people who talk about it talk about the meme that came from it. Because there's a panel from it that I remember immensely, which is where he points at Crypto and he goes, in the story he's saying like, you guys, like, this is my dog and he's your dog too. When he points at like Crypto, they changed the writing where he's like, hey dog, you don't wear capes. Dogs aren't supposed to wear capes. You dumb dog. And it became this meme of like just people just changing what he says. He's like, hey, stop stealing my cape type of thing. So it's funny because people know more about that comic because of that than the actual comic itself.
Yeah, they know the meme more than they know the actual story.
That's really funny.
But yeah, I don't know if anyone out there listening to this, if you saw something in this story that you thought connects to the new movie that we overlooked, point it out to us, or let us know your thoughts and opinions on it. So we're pre-recording this show, but if everything goes according to plan, we will have previously covered Lex Luthor, Man of Steel, another influence on the movie according to James Gunn, and then the next thing we're going to talk about is All-Star Superman, which I think it might be a good idea to split that one up. I like talk about like the first half of it, like the first 6 issues, and then do another show on like the second half.
Yeah, that one is a lot to chew.
Yeah.
I have the trades where they were separate, so it'd be super easy for me.
So let's plan on doing that. But looking forward to talking about those stories And there's been some really cool things in like the Superman comics this year that I think there's going to be some big trades coming out in the next month or two. That it might be a good time to revisit some of those more recent Superman stories after we finish talking about some of these classics. Oh, we also have like Kingdom Come, so that's going to be a fun one. I've not read that in a very, very, very long time.
It's been a long time. I know there's an epilogue that's in some trades, so we may or may not bring up the epilogue whenever we get to it. It depends on what we decide on that one.
Yeah, we'll have to get that figured out. But this is a lot of fun. I liked having an excuse to go back and revisit this. Some things in here I don't like, but overall, keep it in mind when it was written, why it was written. Yeah, still pretty impressed with it.
It was different at the time because it was like it's the way The Dark Knight Returns is. It's like everybody has Superman and Batman fighting to the death every 20 seconds. But at the time, that was a big fucking deal.
Yeah,
so
that was like, a big deal.
So it's the way this is. So crazy, insane deaths was a big deal at the time, but now all you got to do is read Injustice or play Injustice or watch the Injustice movie and be like, or watch Justice League. What is the Doomsday Apocalypse War? That's another one that's just like, what if everybody died brutally? It's like, I don't know. So yeah, this was, and honestly, it's tame by today's standards.
Yeah, very much so. But yeah, All-Star Superman, that'll be a much more positive, bright, hopeful story. And also has like an interesting ending for Superman in that as well. So looking forward to talking about that next. So we can go ahead and sign off, but until next time, keep it super.